Aloha, Big Island. So I've been phone banking for like 6 hours the other day, 8 hours yesterday, and 8 hours today. 3 or 4 days, I did a couple phone calls the first day. When I was on the dialer, there were many calls going through, and it took forever in between. With more people on the dialer, it went a lot quicker. I haven't been doing the Yang Gang Big Island, the ygbi updates for the last 2 or 3 days because I've been phone banking. I can't tell you how rewarding it is, how emotionally attached to it, and how the Yang Gang on Slack has really been something else. I do believe that the Yang campaign has given me a great deal of confidence in myself as an individual, and I do believe where I am, I'm going to be finding out all I could do and ascertain about what's going on in my local neighborhood and my own local county, and get involved politically. I do think that I found a calling through just enjoying the process of understanding and listening to people and finding out their needs. Where I live on the Big Island here, there is not a neighborhood council. There's no place, nobody you could bring your issues or complaints or ideas to. What I would like to do, I would like to do that. I would like to form that for people to have at least a voice. Other than that, today's big topic, big news is that the DNC has changed the rules onto which that you could get in, no longer requiring the small donors. There's lots of angles at it. I do remember when the last polls were coming out, and in January and December they did over something like, 30 polls. And then to qualify for the January debates, which Andrew did not qualify for, and Klobuchar did. I do believe something was stretched just a little bit, so she was able to make it. And the long story short is Andrew kind of said that when the wolves pick at themselves, all they're going to do is fight, and apparently that was what it was on stage. As many people from the Yang Gang that night, boycotted it. I went back and watched the video later, and it was exactly how Andrew had said it was going to be. So he's not prophetic. He's just taking the ideas and data, putting them into a clear picture for the future, and then makes an informed decision. So I can understand that when I'm making 100 phone calls, 200 phone calls, 300 phone calls, 500 phone calls, and I talk to Republicans and I enter the conversation, there is a script that we're supposed to be using. I found it's a little pedantic, and it's annoying for the people that live in Iowa. And I've done it on certain occasions in different strings, but I found my own little script is from the heart. I just basically say, "Hi, how you doing? I'm Wago. I'm from Hawaii. I'm calling here, and I'm sorry to bother you, but this is a political ad. Do you mind if I ask you if you're going to caucus on February 3rd? And I've had like 80% of people say, yeah, let's chit-chat. And no matter if they're independent, Democrat, Republican, the points that I'm bringing up are basically from Andrew's stump speech. I've listened to him speak over, I've watched probably over 100 videos. I've been following pretty much since day one. A little bit after that, the Rogan, but it got me thinking. And every single situation, every single dollar that I spend, every single conversation, every single thought, every dream, when I wake up in the morning, I eat, think, and breathe an Andrew Yang administration. So when I'm talking to people online and I get through the front door and we start chit-chatting about things that are important to them, I have to remind myself that I know way more about what's actually going on than I thought that I knew. And the gravity of these situations really hit hard. I broke down in tears the other day. I was talking to a lady, and as I was explaining to her how the correlation of the UBI by actually just doing the right thing, taxing the companies who do not pay taxes, and doing the right thing, and then cutting government bureaucracy and taxation, I brought up the fact that in Oakland it costs around $100,000 to provide for anybody who's homeless. Being somebody who went out and gallivanted and tried to chit-chat, talk with all the homeless, be comfortable with, and then give them food, time, energy, not so much money, but if I had it, I gave it, and then clothing, and love, basically. I would give them love. I realized that I wasn't able to do anything for them because I wasn't able to do anything for myself. And when I got my head and my act together, three things became apparent. One, I can't make significant change in such a large scale, and I need to find somewhere that I could fit in and that I could be used for social justice, something of which I've always felt. And then secondly, the right timing, being able to be a part of something at the right time. I've never felt like I've been a part of the right thing at the right time. I've done some really cool things, some really good things, and I've done some pretty poor decisions in my life, but all those decisions led me to this moment. And what I could say is, after having a 2.5 hour conversation with a Republican last night from Iowa, discussing things like farmer subsidies, bailouts from the banks, the number 3 exports, the flood in 2008 in Iowa, I begin to realize that nobody really has the right answer. We're all scared, and the things that we make our decisions off of have really been so far askewed by something else, which is controlling our hearts and our heads. What I can say is, I am not trying to persuade somebody to want Andrew Yang as president. I am trying to give my case clearly, that the people that are listening to me talk about how getting rid of the penny, or giving women equal rights in the year 2020, or having people that return home from military have something more than just a handshake, so they have basically self-worth, decompressed from military life into civilian life, or term limits on congressional seats, making Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico states, giving people the ability to vote at 16. Especially the freedom dividend, especially the M4A without pulling out private insurance. I have so much knowledge in my head that's been given to me by the campaign, and it's been given to me by asking questions, going to other candidates' websites, reading their platform policies, comparing them, and then looking at the Venn diagram about how when you cut out one thing, an aspect of reality, the bureaucracy and government and money in between the two ideas, it might not be the same thinking about making Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico states, but what if you think about the Electoral College and how it is, and how even Reagan took away states from the Electoral College, you could begin to realize, if we the people make the decisions, we can do anything we want with this process. The problem is, we the people aren't making decisions anymore. We elect people who are bought by big money, whether it's big oil, big guns, it doesn't matter. The end result is, the future's here. AI will be taking any job that I'm going to be capable of working. I work 2 to 3 jobs generally, always. And from what I realize is, when I am 80 or 90, which is generally the age that I was calling consistently, it was all the way anywhere between the line. I didn't really speak to anybody younger than like maybe 25. If I did, they were already involved in the campaign process. I actually spoke to somebody who was a Pete Buttigieg precinct captain, I think. And I quite possibly think I might have yanged her, just talking about how yang affects me. And no BS. I guess when it all comes down to it, here's what I said, after that little pitch to talk to people to get in the door, which was a little bit different than the lineup. I would gauge where the person was while listening to the couple key points, after asking them how that made them feel. If they were a Republican and they said, I'm voting for Trump or a Republican, I would say, great, thank you for participating in democracy, which took many Republicans off guard, or many people that were voting for another candidate besides mine. In my speech, I didn't let on that I was campaigning for Andrew Yang. I basically made them feel like I understand me calling them as a pain in the butt. The person that I want to be president wants to change the process of the electoral process, not taking away any significance from Iowans, but giving that same American process and duty and privilege to other people. Say maybe people from Alaska, or maybe voters from Hawaii. Who knows? What I do know is where I got with on every conversation. The idea of Republicans changing their party affiliation just to vote in our primaries to elect somebody that I believe is the only candidate on stage that basically can be summarized in one word. And that word is gratitude. I do believe when speaking from the heart, because I believe everything that I said, and I do believe everything that Andrew says. I think a pragmatic leader that uses PowerPoint presentations at the end of the year to explain who was removed from office, who is instated, how much money they're paid, how much taxpayers' dollars went to it, what was done, what we could do better, and then ask questions is much better way to run the system than having a carpetbagger throw paper towels at us. However, that's my own opinion. If Puerto Rico was a state, the 51st state, most likely we wouldn't have been dealing with Hurricane number 2 hitting them and their infrastructure still being in shambles currently. So whether it's paradise and the leader of the free world doesn't know where it is and what's on fire, or it's lining the pockets of, billionaires and millionaires with more money, inevitably the breakthrough came with talking to people that are going to vote, that if we let the far left control the next election, people like that work for the media and people like Tom Perez that do have a strong grasp on what's happening will get even worse than what we realize. The people in office that aren't, I guess, what you would consider morally corrupt or morally correct, when the 80% turns into 95% and everybody takes up their First and Second Amendment rights to get what is naturally all ours, which is what we're fighting for, I do think we could circumvent that way before that non-passive way by saying things along the line of, I am your butcher, your baker, your candlestick maker. I feed your children. I change the oil in your cars. I wash your clothes and clean your homes. I am the backbone that makes America work, not politicians that take money. So I like Andrew Yang because he splits out the middle difference, getting rid of government bureaucracy, and that money goes directly to the people that need it. No questions asked, no hoops to jump through. That in combination with Medicare for All, that in combination with basically calling things for what they are. We live in an establishment, as you can see, that favors only a certain demographic. If you agree with that, then by all means, vote Republican. If you don't agree with that and you would like to see some substantial change happen within the DNC and its own party, I would suggest voting for Andrew Yang. And most of the time after these 30-minute, 40-minute, especially after 2.5 hours on a conversation, which I had 2 different ones yesterday and 1 today, what I'm getting from voters who normally have voted Republican their whole lives, or they vote Democrat because they've changed over, or they're independent like myself, they realize that the time to procrastinate is gone. And when I shared such knowledge like China and Russia dropping coal off in South Africa, running that 25 hours a day, 8 days a week, the perception of what's real changes because you could see where the dollar goes. And some stuff I brought up was about Halliburton, how they caused issues in the oil spills and then they cleaned them up. Everybody who was a shareholder made money because their subsidiary company cleaned up the mess and caused it. We live in an insane world, and to make a rational decision about what is happening right now in our world is insane. I don't know if I could put my finger on one certain thing which makes everything all right or even worse, but I could tell you what, when I don't focus on the code of conduct and I don't focus on just being the best I possibly can be for Andrew Yang, I get upset at what the people are saying on the phone. Sometimes it's extremely uneducated and sometimes it's extremely racist, like more racist than I've ever heard in my life. And it makes me feel ashamed, 1, to be white, and 2, to be American, and 3, to just be alive. Where I feel the most significant change can be done from my participation in this is I am so passionate that when I talk to people, putting my emotions aside and focusing on straight ahead is the only thing that keeps me centered during these calls. 8 hours to do anything is a long time, but when you're busting out 8 hours and you're talking to people about the same issues, they all kind of blend together. And what I have to realize is they're not all the same. Everybody else is different than me, and they're all different within inside their own. For me to try to explain the electoral process or how delegates in the caucus work to somebody who went to a caucus when they were 18 and hated it and have never been banned and now vote Republican, I realized that I can't spend an hour on a conversation like that. And I have spent 1 or 2 hours on conversations with people that do believe that ideology. But at the end of it, the words that come out of their mouth are enlightening. And I show them gratitude by telling them, thank you for enlightening me, which is true. I don't think anything in this world is attained without having communication. The relationships in my life that I've only stopped recently or in the last decade or so because I realized that in a point in my life, I wasn't able to formulate opinions not based off my own emotional well-being. And now that I'm in a state of better emotional well-being and I can analyze things, do pros and cons lists, and see how stepping back from the situation gives me clarity, I've realized that every effort and every conversation to try and persuade somebody is ridiculous. I had a boss once that told me, Jay, if you ever watch this, thank you very much. Jay from Pumpernickels. You can't kiss somebody leaning away from you. You can't climb a fence leaning towards you. And you can't help those who don't want to be helped. I really wish I would have internalized that more. And then the other day I heard somebody on a podcast or something say something along the lines of, nobody ever really forgets. All we do is compartmentalize things that are important to us. So when you say, I forgot, you're just saying, basically, that wasn't important enough for me to remember or to analyze or go into deep or discipline to function to remember that. So what I have to remember in all these conversations is every single person, no matter if they're voting for the Republican side or the Democratic side or anywhere in between, no matter what age, shape, creed, color, is entitled to their own opinion. I don't actually have to stay on the line the whole time. And if I feel challenged or if I feel somebody's angry or hostile, I could opt out of that as well. The idea is, though, I want to fix everything. And I realize I can't just put a Band-Aid on something by saying, what somebody wants to hear. So what I think has shown through my performance as a Yang Gang phone banker should possibly and quite possibly is, and I do hope in my heart of hearts, is the same thing every other person on that phone banking is doing for Yang. Keeping it real. Being yourself. Being authentic. No bullshit. Find the answer. Get people what they need to make an informed decision. Because whether you're buying a car, you're getting in a relationship, taking a new job, nobody just some people do. Good for them. But I personally, I wouldn't walk into a dealership and be like, oh, this one, and just do no research. Wouldn't happen. So the long and short of it is, I found myself being just entertained by the fact that I really wasn't there to persuade anybody. I was there to verify that they were going to participate in democracy. And once I was in the door, I told them what that democracy meant to me, how it affects my life, and more importantly, how helping other people in life inevitably leads to less interaction with me and those people. Whether it's through the government interaction with less interaction and less taxes, or it's the basic theme and principle when somebody's happy and their needs are met, they're less likely to be so complicated upstairs. And if you know what that means, it's, I guess if you don't know what that means, YouTube Yang Gang money giveaway. There's 2 dudes from the Yang Gang giving away $1,000 stacks like this and that. Watch the happiness that it brings to people and watch the emotional state go from unaware and fearful to absolutely grateful and amazed by the process. Yang Gang, I'm calling you right now. If you are on the Big Island and you're Yang curious, email me. yanggangbigisland@gmail.com or go to yang2020.com and sign up for phone banking. Tomorrow is February 2nd. That means that today and tomorrow are and were the last days to effectively talk to somebody from Iowa and hear their concerns and not try and persuade them, just to ask them to show up on February 3rd so they can physically stand and approve of Andrew Yang and his message. What I've learned from this process is many people like Andrew Yang but don't think he has the experience. He doesn't have the 40 years of sitting in rooms as Biden does, That wouldn't be in code of conduct. He doesn't have that 40 years of doing other things that other senators and other politicians do. However, he does have a little something which is different from all those people. He has exactly what the American people were looking for last time around. Unfortunately, the ideas that were expressed that got this president and this current administration rolling are still the same concerns that the left and right are fighting over. I think it's very interesting when I get to that point in conversations with people while phone banking that the conversations will take a very quick turn if either one of us uses the wrong terminology for ideas which make up the way we feel about situations. So one of the ones that kind of turned the other day, and I was talking to somebody, they'd never heard of Yang, they're a Republican, didn't understand that you could sign up as a Democrat to get Yang on the DNC. And what I told them basically was, if you think Warren and Bernie and all those people are too progressive, if you think that they've got a chance but you don't like their ideologies and you don't know of Yang, go to Yang 2020, research his policies, see how they compare to your president or your choice, whether it's Walsh or Weld or Trump on the Republican side. I think there's 3 on the Republican side now. I've read their policies. Trump doesn't really have any policies, but Weld and Walsh have a couple things on their webpage. And then I think there's 11 Democrats right now, and out of all those, my personal preference really doesn't matter for what it is. But here's the thing is, if I'm a Democrat, or I'm an independent, but if I wasn't voting as a Democrat this time just to have Andrew Yang elected, I don't know if I would have voted in the DNC, because I don't think the DMC caucus primaries, because I don't think that any one candidate is that bad the way that maybe a Republican would view it. But I do understand how they could see the progressiveness of some of the candidates as being completely abstract to the middle of the road and or more of the right. So to each their own. And what I just said to everybody, whether Republican, Democrat, Independent, is thank you for caucusing and participating in democracy. If you see the Yang gang out there, give them a high five. And I told everybody that I could possibly that I was talking to, just in case, to wear a blue shirt. So in case you are walking by the Yang gang, you could just kind of fit in. Other than that, folks, I've had a wonderful time with this process of Andrew Yang, and I hope that my journey doesn't end. As I said, I do believe that I've been enlightened and I've found some sort of purpose. And I never thought it would have been to be politically active. But after spending these last really intense 4 weeks, and then before that doing the videos, and then learning and sucking in all the information from text banking for the last 5 months, I do not believe I will ever be able to go back to not being politically active. There's just so much to do and so much to save. And I guess if I could end on this as well, the one thing that I've taken out of this process of texting, phone banking, watching almost every video I could get my hands on, talking to almost any person I could Yang, living in Hawaii at a tourist destination, I was able to talk to people from Canada, Alaska, Germany, Iowa, South Carolina, Nashville, New Jersey, California, Oregon, a lot of people coming in from Oregon. And what I have learned is people are tired of this process and charade, dare I say shit show. And I agree. Right now is the time where I do believe we get to choose Andrew Yang, and then in several, maybe 100 years from now, this time period will be looked back as the transformative period, the transformative era, if you will. I do believe the concepts and principles that we lay down right now will cohesively put us together to work in cohesion and put us on the path to become a type 1 civilization, to work together rather than separately and apart. There is a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. Coronavirus, walls, ISIS, ICE, detention centers, children in cages, pipelines failing, bridges falling, infrastructure going away, fires burning, monsoons brewing, hurricanes a-whipping. And what I can say is the most dangerous thing that I can imagine right now is having people not participate in the election process, whether it's now, February 3rd, with the caucus for Iowa, the most important thing going on in February-ish. besides a couple other things like Black History Month and other things which are precedent. But you hear what I'm saying. Overall, if we don't put somebody in charge that's going to be able to at least put other people in charge of things that are necessary, like not putting the head of a coal lobbyist venture ahead of the EPA, and not putting big money Betsy DeVos in education, and not putting Ben Carson in urban development, like putting people that are supposed to be in the job, people who are absolutely trained for that job. I won't use any of the similes and metaphors or comparisons that I use when I kind of talk to people, because at that point I'm on a rapport with them. I do clearly express that the things that come out of my mouth are not the yang, not in the yang some speech, but when I say stuff along the lines of, personally, I don't care what happens to this or that because I don't care about this and that. It's only my opinion. When I break it down on how that relates to a yang policy, I could see how saying something like, when you get rid of the penny and Chinese laborers don't have to go down in mines to mine zinc and copper, and that would help towards our deficit, which we don't plan on paying off to China anyways. That somebody either doesn't really understand the concept or doesn't know how much bureaucracy is behind just the penny. And knowing that our information, our data is going to be the new oil, worth the new amount of money, the new it. I just don't think that most of our tangible goods are backed by the standard of gold, let alone do I think the gold is physically there in any way, shape, or form. I do believe that we invade other countries for the MIC to distribute their natural resources into America, so we could basically use them, sell them to the American people, and then move on to the next thing. Whether it's Hawaii with sugarcane and pineapples, or turning Honolulu into a port, or if it's Saudi Arabia with oil, or opium from the Middle East, or in Afghanistan, or the next thing, Bolivia with lithium for our cell phones or batteries. Whatever it is, I've just been hoping that people would wake up to the fact that we quite possibly are living in the times where this is definitively the time where we can decide where and what we want to be as a people. And what I leave people with when I'm talking to them on the phone after generally either a 2-second conversation or a 2.5-hour conversation is complete and utter gratitude. And I even say the only thing that I see Andrew Yang has that no other candidate does, and I could surmise his whole running and his whole platform and his policies on one word. That word is gratitude. And I have gratitude for Yang Gang and the Big Island. So if you are on the Big Island or not on the Big Island, and you are Yang Gang or you're not Yang and you're Yang curious, go to yang2020.com, sign up to Phone Bank, and get out there and participate in democracy. The caucuses are February 3rd. The world will know who February 4th Andrew Yang is. It'll be a completely different world one day after. Aloha, Yang Gang.
How our conversations were going to go. I wanted to make sure you were going to vote regardless of being Republican or Democrat. I don't want to sway people from participating. And I have to say, I appreciate... Go ahead. Yeah, they're beautiful. Well, here's the thing. I wasn't able to find a number that would work, but I can give you a number that will help you to vote. If you have a pen and paper. Great. Okay, hopefully that works. Have a great day, sir, and thank you for chit-chatting.
Yeah, thanks for your help.
Bye. Hi, is Tara there? This is a political call. My name's Wago. I'm calling from Hawaii on behalf of Andrew Yang. We saw that she had interest in going caucusing on February 3rd, and I was just going to wonder if I could get her to guarantee she'd be there to stand in Yang's corner. Or answer any questions, basically.
No, she isn't her phone.
Okay, sorry about that then.
That's all right.
Since I have you here, are you? You planning on going February 3rd, caucusing?
No, I want to see how it turns out. I'm independent, so.
Awesome. Good for you. Thank you for getting information and participating. I also am an independent. I'm voting. I registered as a Democrat just so I could get him on our April 4th ballot here in Hawaii. Other than that, I'm going to probably go with who the DNC goes with unless a better option comes. But try and keep an eye out for Andrew Yang. He's doing some pretty cool things. He convinced me after a lot of research, and then I cried for about a half an hour. And then I started to text people and call people. So here we are. But anywho, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great night.
You too. Thanks.
How's it? I'm calling from Hawaii, and this is a political call. I'm calling to see if you're going to go to caucus February 3rd. Awesome. And we can see from the records that you were interested in Andrew Yang. Are you going to caucus for Andrew Yang this year? Wonderful. And on 0 to 10, on a scale to that, 0 being not going to go, or 10, you're going to caucus. Sounds like you're going to go caucus. Are you a 10? Wonderful. Do you have about 60 seconds to just go through some information so we have everything right for you so it's easy breezy? Great. Based on our records, it looks like you're in precinct J. Does that sound correct? No. It says that you would have been caucusing at First Avenue Club at 1550 Street in Iowa, First Street. That is correct? Cool. Right on. They might have had a different prefix for your district, but if that place sounds correct, awesome. So the caucus is going to be Monday night, February 3rd, and the doors, as always, close at 7. We would suggest being there at 6:30 just to make sure that you can find your precinct captain, and they'll be wearing a math hat, so you'll definitely see them. Cool? And he has an Iowa flag underneath underneath the brim. May I ask how you're going to get there? Oh, that's you. You'll be there at 5. Wonderful. You'll be driving. All right. So I guess we don't have to come through this. You are the caucus captain of the precinct league. Awesome. Coming home from work, going from home, other. You're gonna be cool. And are you going to bring a bunch of people, or is it just going to be you? Okay. Well, wonderful. Proof's in the pudding, I've been saying. Right, awesome. And then as far as what you really need, you need an Iowa State ID. If you don't have that, you could do an out-of-state ID. As long as you got a piece of mail that shows your precinct and your address, you should be good. Or alternatively, you could bring somebody who's already registered in that precinct to vouch for you. It's very quick. The DNC just wants to make sure that everything is legit. Are you going to be bringing an Iowa ID? Wonderful. All right, so just to review on this, you know your location, you're going to be driving, you're going to be bringing your friends, and you're coming straight from work, and the ID you're going to bring is just the Iowa ID. Does that all sound right? Wonderful. Thank you very much for caucusing for Andrew Yang. I'm part of the Yang gang, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. Thank you. Right on. I'm Wago. You too. Mahalo. I have talked to more leads. I don't know if that just means that they're in our system or they weren't Yang Gang and now they are, but that's amazing. That's like my 4th person to talk to.